The Roman Empire of the 2nd century after Christ was a world unlike anything we can truly imagine today. Picture, if you will, a civilization that stretched from the misty hills of northern Britain to the sun-baked sands of Egypt, from the Atlantic shores of Portugal to the bustling markets of Syria. This was not merely a collection of conquered territories, but a living, breathing organism of human civilization that pulsed with the rhythms of daily life across 3 continents. In this vast empire, the morning sun would rise over a million different scenes of human activity. In Rome itself, the eternal city, nearly a million souls would wake to the sounds of cart wheels on stone, the calls of merchants setting up their stalls, and the gentle murmur of fountains that brought fresh mountain water down from the hills through magnificent aqueducts. These weren't the harsh, industrial sounds of modern cities, but the organic rhythms of a world where human scale still mattered, where neighborhoods had distinct characters, and where the pace of life followed natural cycles. The typical Roman citizen of this golden age lived in a world where time moved differently. There were no clocks as we know them, no rigid schedules dividing the day into precise segments. Instead, the day flowed according to the position of the sun, the needs of the community, and the ancient rhythms that had governed human life for millennia. The Romans divided their day into 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness, but these hours expanded and contracted with the seasons, breathing with the natural world like a living thing. Consider the materials that surrounded these ancient people. Everything was made by human hands from natural substances. The stones of their buildings were quarried from nearby hills and carried by teams of oxen along well-maintained roads. The wood for their furniture came from forests that stretched for hundreds of miles, carefully managed by communities that understood the delicate balance between use and preservation. The clay for their pottery was dug from riverbanks and hillsides, shaped on wheels turned by human feet, and fired in kilns that burned with the sweet smoke of oak and olive wood. The textures of Roman life were rich and varied in ways that modern life has forgotten. Imagine running your hand along a wall built of tufa stone, feeling the slight roughness of this volcanic rock that was quarried from the hills around Rome. The stone held the warmth of the Mediterranean sun during the day and released it slowly through the cool evening hours, creating a natural climate control that kept homes comfortable without any mechanical systems. These walls were often covered with frescoes painted in pigments made from crushed minerals and plants, creating colors that seemed to glow with an inner light. The sounds of Roman life created a symphony that was both familiar and utterly foreign to modern ears. In the early morning, you might hear the soft padding of bare feet on stone floors as household slaves began their daily tasks. The grinding of grain in hand mills created a rhythmic susurrus that spoke of sustenance being prepared with care and attention. Water flowing through lead pipes made a gentle murmur that was the heartbeat of Roman civilization, for the Romans were perhaps the greatest hydraulic engineers the world has ever known. The Romans lived with a profound connection to the seasons and the natural world that modern urban life has largely severed. Their calendar was deeply rooted in agricultural cycles, religious observances that honored the turning of the year, and festivals that celebrated the abundance of harvest or marked the quiet introspection of winter. Each month brought its own foods, its own activities, its own rhythms of work and rest. Spring in the Roman world was a time of renewal that touched every aspect of life. As the winter rains ceased and the Mediterranean sun grew stronger, the countryside burst into bloom with wildflowers that carpeted the hills in brilliant colors. Farmers would begin the careful work of planting, following practices passed down through generations. In the cities, this was the season for cleaning and renewal, when houses were aired out after the winter months and fresh herbs were gathered to sweeten the air. Summer brought the intense heat that defined Mediterranean life, but the Romans had learned to live with this climate rather than fight against it. The afternoon hours, when the sun was at its strongest, were times for rest and reflection. Shops would close, families would retreat to the coolest parts of their homes, and the cities would take on an almost dreamlike quality as people moved slowly through the thick, warm air. This was not seen as an inconvenience but as a natural rhythm to be embraced. The Roman approach to bathing reveals much about their understanding of comfort and community. The great public baths were not merely places to get clean, but social centers where citizens of all classes could come together. These magnificent complexes featured rooms of different temperatures, from the cool frigidarium to the steamy caldarium, allowing bathers to move gradually through a sequence of experiences that was both physically refreshing and socially enriching. The baths were places of conversation, business, politics, and friendship, where the boundaries between different social groups became more fluid. Food in the Roman world was prepared and consumed with a mindfulness that modern fast-paced life has largely abandoned. Meals were social events that could last for hours, with conversation flowing as freely as the wine. The Romans understood that eating was about more than mere nutrition. It was an opportunity to strengthen social bonds, share news and stories, and enjoy the simple pleasures of well-prepared food and good company. Their kitchens were filled with herbs and spices that created complex, satisfying flavors using ingredients that were local and seasonal. The Roman house was designed around the concept of the atrium, an open courtyard that brought light and air into the heart of the home. This space was often decorated with plants and small trees, creating a private garden that connected the family to the natural world even in the midst of urban life. The gentle sound of rain falling on this open space during winter storms, or the sight of stars visible through the opening on clear nights, reminded the inhabitants that they were part of something larger than their immediate surroundings. Roman clothing was both practical and beautiful, made from materials that connected the wearer to the natural world. Linen came from flax grown in the fields of Egypt, soft and cool against the skin in the Mediterranean heat. Wool was carefully prepared from sheep that grazed on hillsides throughout the empire, spun into thread, and woven into fabric on looms that were works of art in themselves. The colors came from natural sources, purple from murex shells, red from madder root, blue from the precious indigo plant. These clothes were designed to be comfortable and dignified, allowing for the graceful movement that was so important in Roman social life. As we draw closer to understanding this ancient world, imagine yourself as a traveler approaching Rome for the first time in the year 150 after Christ. You have been walking for weeks along the great roads that connected the empire, those magnificent highways that were built to last for centuries and many of which still carry traffic today. Your feet have grown accustomed to the rhythm of walking on perfectly fitted stone blocks, each one placed with the precision that made Roman engineering legendary throughout the known world. The journey itself has been a gradual introduction to the scale and sophistication of Roman civilization. Every few miles, you have passed milestones that mark the distance to the great city, carved with the names of emperors and the care that Romans took in even the smallest details of administration. At regular intervals, way stations have provided shelter, food, and fresh horses for official messengers, but also welcomed ordinary travelers with the hospitality that was a sacred duty throughout the ancient world. The road has taken you through landscapes that spoke of careful cultivation and thoughtful management. The hills of central Italy in the 2nd century were covered with olive groves and vineyards that had been tended by the same families for generations. These were not the industrial agricultural operations of modern times, but intimate relationships between human communities and the land that sustained them. Each vineyard was a work of art, with vines trained on trellises that followed the natural contours of the hillsides, creating patterns that were both beautiful and functional. As you walk, you have encountered the incredible diversity of the Roman world. Fellow travelers might include a merchant from Gaul carrying fine pottery, a scholar from Alexandria with a precious cargo of books, a soldier returning from service on the German frontier, or a family of pilgrims visiting the sacred sites of the capital. The roads of Rome were rivers of human activity, carrying goods, ideas, and dreams across vast distances with an efficiency that would not be seen again in Europe for more than 1,000 years. The architecture you have passed along the way has prepared you for the grandeur of Rome itself, but on a human scale that remained comfortable and welcoming. Town forums with their porticoed walkways provided shade from the sun and shelter from rain, creating public spaces where community life could flourish. Temples dedicated to various gods and goddesses dotted the landscape, not as expressions of dogmatic religion, but as acknowledgments of the mystery and wonder that infused daily life. These buildings were designed to inspire awe, but also to make worshippers feel welcome and at peace. Now, as you crest the final hill before Rome, the city spreads before you like something from a dream. The first thing that strikes you is not the imposing nature of the buildings, but their harmony with the landscape. Rome was built on 7 hills, and the architects and urban planners had worked with these natural features rather than trying to impose a rigid grid upon them. The result was a city that felt organic, as if it had grown naturally from the earth rather than being imposed upon it by human will. The approach to any Roman city was designed to create a sense of anticipation and wonder, and Rome itself was the masterpiece of this art. Wide boulevards lined with trees led toward the gates, creating vistas that drew the eye forward while providing comfortable walking conditions. The gates themselves were not merely defensive structures, but architectural statements that welcomed visitors while demonstrating the power and sophistication of Roman civilization. These were built of travertine and marble, materials that caught and reflected light in ways that made them seem almost to glow from within. As you pass through the gates, the first impression is one of organized activity rather than chaotic bustle. Yes, Rome was a city of nearly 1 million people, but it was a city that had been planned and managed with care. The streets were paved with polygonal stones that fit together so perfectly that they could carry heavy traffic for centuries without significant maintenance. These streets were cleaned daily by teams of municipal workers, and the famous Roman sewers carried away waste with an efficiency that most cities would not achieve again until the industrial age. The buildings that line these streets tell the story of a civilization that valued both functionality and beauty. The ground floors typically housed shops and workshops, with large windows that allowed artisans to work by natural light and customers to see the goods on display. Above these commercial spaces, apartments provided homes for the growing urban population. These were not the anonymous housing blocks of modern cities, but buildings where neighbors knew each other, where children played in courtyards under the watchful eyes of the entire community. The materials used in Roman construction created an environment that was pleasant to all the senses. Stone and brick walls provided excellent insulation against both heat and cold, while tile roofs created interesting patterns of light and shadow that changed throughout the day. The Romans were masters of the use of color in architecture, and many buildings were painted in warm earth tones that harmonized with the natural landscape. These colors were not the harsh synthetic hues of modern paint, but subtle shades created from natural minerals and clays that aged gracefully and seemed to become more beautiful with time. Water was everywhere in Rome, not just for practical purposes but as a source of beauty and tranquility. Fountains marked major intersections and provided gathering places where people could meet, children could play, and the sound of flowing water created a peaceful counterpoint to the sounds of urban life. These fountains were fed by the great aqueducts that brought fresh mountain water from sources dozens of miles away, an engineering achievement that provided the city with water that was cleaner and more reliable than what most modern cities can offer their residents. The public spaces of Rome were designed to encourage social interaction and community life. The great forums were not just centers of government and commerce, but places where citizens could gather to discuss the issues of the day, to see and be seen, to participate in the civic life that was the heart of Roman culture. These spaces were surrounded by porticos that provided shelter from sun and rain, creating comfortable environments for extended conversation and contemplation. As you move deeper into the city, you begin to notice the incredible attention to detail that characterized Roman civilization. Street corners are marked with small shrines to household gods, creating a sense that the divine was present in even the most mundane aspects of daily life. Shop signs are carved with care and decorated with symbols that identify the trade practiced within. Even the most utilitarian structures, like public latrines and market stalls, are built with a solidity and attention to proportion that speaks of a culture that valued quality and permanence. The sounds of Rome create a complex symphony that changes throughout the day. In the early morning, you hear the soft shuffling of slaves and servants beginning their daily tasks, the gentle splash of water being drawn from fountains, the quiet conversations of early risers heading to the markets. As the day progresses, these sounds are joined by the calls of merchants advertising their wares, the clatter of cartwheels on stone, the voices of children at play in the courtyards and squares. But even at its busiest, Rome maintains a fundamental quality of tranquility that comes from the confidence and stability of a mature civilization. This is not the frantic energy of a society struggling to establish itself, but the steady rhythm of a culture that has found sustainable ways to organize human life on a massive scale. The Romans understood that true strength comes not from constant striving and competition, but from the creation of systems that allow people to live together in peace and prosperity. Now, as afternoon settles over the eternal city, we find ourselves naturally drawn into the gentle rhythms that govern daily life in this remarkable civilization. The harsh heat of midday is beginning to soften, and the city takes on that golden quality that has inspired poets and artists for over 2,000 years. This is the hour when Romans traditionally paused in their activities, not from laziness or inefficiency, but from a deep understanding that human beings function best when they align themselves with natural cycles rather than fighting against them. Imagine finding yourself welcomed into a typical Roman household during this peaceful time of day. The house surrounds you with an immediate sense of comfort and security that comes not from luxury, but from the careful attention to human needs that characterized Roman domestic architecture. The walls are thick enough to keep the interior cool during the heat of summer and warm during the mild Roman winters. The floors are covered with mosaics that are not merely decorative, but tell stories and create patterns that please the eye without overwhelming the senses. The atrium, the heart of the Roman home, opens above you to a rectangle of sky that brings light deep into the interior spaces. This opening serves multiple purposes with the elegant efficiency that marked all Roman design. Rain falling through this space collects in a shallow pool called the impluvium, providing a source of soft water for household use and creating the gentle sound of droplets that soothes the mind and masks the sounds of the busy street outside. The play of light and shadow created by this opening changes throughout the day, marking the passage of time in a way that connects the inhabitants to the natural world. Around this central space, the rooms of the house unfold in a logical sequence that reflects the Roman understanding of how families should live together. The tablinum, or study, provides a quiet space for reading, writing, and contemplation. Here, scrolls of papyrus and parchment contain the accumulated wisdom of centuries, from the philosophical writings of the Greeks to the practical manuals that made Roman engineering possible. The Romans were great readers, and even modest households typically contained small libraries that provided intellectual nourishment and entertainment during the long evening hours. The dining room, or triclinium, is arranged around low couches that allow diners to recline in comfort while enjoying their meals. This arrangement was not mere indulgence, but reflected the Roman understanding that eating should be a relaxed, social activity that strengthens family bonds and provides an opportunity for meaningful conversation. The walls are decorated with frescoes that depict peaceful garden scenes, creating the illusion that the diners are surrounded by nature even when they are in the heart of the city. The kitchen, though physically separated from the main living areas, is the true center of household activity. Here, slaves and free servants work together to prepare meals using ingredients that come from all corners of the empire. The smell of bread baking in the clay ovens mingles with the aromas of herbs and spices that create the complex flavors of Roman cuisine. The kitchen fire burns continuously, providing not only heat for cooking but also a gathering place for the household staff, who form their own community within the larger family structure. In the private quarters of the house, the bedrooms are simple but comfortable spaces designed for rest and restoration. The beds are low platforms covered with mattresses stuffed with wool or feathers, depending on the wealth of the family. Blankets woven from the finest will provide warmth during cool nights, while the thick walls keep the rooms cool during the heat of summer. Windows are positioned to catch cooling breezes while maintaining privacy, and many rooms have small private gardens or courtyards that provide personal outdoor space. The Roman approach to privacy was different from our modern understanding, but no less sophisticated. Rather than seeking complete isolation, Romans created spaces that allowed for different levels of social interaction. The public rooms of the house were designed for entertaining guests and conducting business, while more private spaces provided opportunities for family intimacy and personal reflection. This gradual transition from public to private spaces created a sense of psychological comfort that helped residents feel both connected to their community and secure in their personal lives. Water plays a crucial role in creating the peaceful atmosphere of the Roman home. In addition to the impluvium and the atrium, many houses have small fountains in their gardens that provide the soothing sound of flowing water throughout the day and night. These fountains are fed by the same aqueduct system that supplies the great public baths and fountains, bringing the pure water of mountain springs directly into private homes. The Romans understood that the sound of water has a profound effect on human psychology, promoting relaxation and creating a sense of connection to the natural world. The gardens attached to Roman houses are masterpieces of design that create maximum beauty and utility in minimal space. These are not the formal gardens of later European tradition, but naturalistic spaces that feel like private glimpses of the countryside. Fruit trees provide shade and seasonal food, while herb gardens supply the kitchen with fresh seasonings and medicinal plants. Flowers are chosen not only for their beauty but for their fragrances, creating outdoor rooms that engage all the senses and provide peaceful refuges from the demands of urban life. The afternoon hours in a Roman household are times for quiet activities that nourish both body and soul. This might be the time when the family gathers in the garden to listen to one member read aloud from a favorite author, or when individuals pursue personal interests like painting, music, or correspondence with friends in distant parts of the empire. Children use this time for their lessons, learning not only practical skills like reading and arithmetic, but also the cultural knowledge that will make them full participants in Roman civilization. The Romans understood that education was not merely the acquisition of facts, but the development of character and judgment that would serve students throughout their lives. Children learned by example as much as by formal instruction, observing how adults conducted themselves in various social situations and gradually taking on more responsibilities as they matured. This approach created a sense of continuity between generations and helped maintain the stability that was one of Rome's greatest achievements. As the afternoon progresses, household slaves begin the gentle activities that will prepare for the evening meal. The Romans were conscious of the dignity of work, and even domestic labor was conducted with care and pride. Slaves in Roman households were often treated more like family members than property, and many were eventually freed to become full citizens. This system, while imperfect by modern standards, created households where cooperation and mutual respect were essential for daily functioning. The preparation of food in a Roman household is an art that engages all the senses. Ingredients are chosen for their quality and freshness, often purchased daily from markets that bring produce directly from the surrounding countryside. Cooking techniques emphasize the natural flavors of ingredients rather than masking them with heavy sauces or excessive spicing. The result is cuisine that is both sophisticated and comforting, designed to nourish the body while providing pleasure for the palate. During these quiet afternoon hours, the house gradually fills with the aromas that announce the approaching evening meal. The scent of bread rises from ovens where loaves bake slowly to achieve the perfect crust and texture. Herbs simmering in olive oil create fragrances that speak of the Mediterranean landscape where they grew. Wine, stored in cool cellars in large clay amphoras, waits to be served in elegant glass cups that catch and reflect the light of oil lamps. The transition from afternoon to evening in a Roman household is marked not by mechanical clocks, but by the subtle changes in light and temperature that connect the inhabitants to the natural rhythms of the earth. As shadows lengthen in the garden and the air begins to cool, family members and guests begin to gather in the public spaces of the house, ready to enjoy the social pleasures of the evening meal and the conversations that will extend deep into the night. As the golden hour settles over Rome, we enter the most treasured time of the Roman day, when the activities of commerce and administration give way to the deeper pleasures of family, friendship, and contemplation. The evening hours in ancient Rome were not simply the end of the working day, but a sacred time when the community came together to share food, stories, and the bonds that held civilization together. This was when Romans reconnected with the fundamental values that made their society strong, resilient, and ultimately enduring. The evening meal, or cena, was the principal meal of the Roman day, but it was far more than mere sustenance. It was a ritual that transformed the simple act of eating into an expression of culture, hospitality, and social connection. The dining room has been carefully prepared for this daily ceremony, with couches arranged around low tables that encourage conversation and create an atmosphere of relaxed intimacy. Oil lamps flicker softly, casting warm light that creates gentle shadows and makes faces glow with warmth and contentment. The meal begins not with rushing to consume food, but with moments of quiet appreciation that acknowledge the sources of abundance and the work that has gone into creating the feast. Romans understood that food was a gift that connected them to the earth, to the farmers who grew their crops, to the merchants who brought exotic spices from distant lands, and to the household staff who transformed raw ingredients into delicious and nourishing dishes. The first course typically consists of simple but elegant appetizers that awaken the palate and encourage conversation. These might include olives that have been cured with herbs and sea salt, preserving the fruit of trees that have grown on Mediterranean hillsides for centuries. Fresh cheese, made from the milk of goats and sheep that graze on the aromatic herbs of the Roman countryside, provides protein and richness that satisfies without overwhelming. Honey, gathered from beehives maintained by skilled apiarists, adds sweetness that connects the diners to the wildflowers and fruit trees where the bees collected nectar. As the meal progresses, the pace remains deliberately slow, allowing time for the food to be properly savored and for conversation to develop naturally. Romans believed that eating quickly was not only bad for digestion, but also missed the social and spiritual dimensions of sharing a meal. The dining couches are arranged so that diners can easily see and speak with each other, creating an environment where everyone can participate in the conversation regardless of their position at the table. The main courses reflect the incredible diversity of the Roman Empire, with ingredients and cooking techniques drawn from all corners of the known world. A simple roasted chicken might be seasoned with pepper from India, prepared with olive oil from groves in Spain, and served with garum, a fermented fish sauce that adds depth and complexity to the flavors. These global connections were not marks of imperial domination, but evidence of the Roman genius for bringing together the best that different cultures had to offer. Vegetables play a prominent role in Roman cuisine, not as afterthoughts or side dishes, but as central elements that provide both nutrition and pleasure. Roman cooks understood how to prepare vegetables in ways that enhanced their natural flavors rather than disguising them. Asparagus might be lightly steamed and dressed with olive oil and wine vinegar. Artichokes could be stuffed with herbs and slow-cooked until tender. Leafy greens were prepared as salads with dressings that balanced sweet, sour, and salty flavors in perfect harmony. Wine is served throughout the meal, but always diluted with water according to Roman custom. This practice was not based on any moral objection to alcohol, but on the understanding that wine should enhance social interaction rather than dominate it. The Romans were sophisticated vintners who produced wines of remarkable quality and variety, from light, refreshing whites perfect for warm evenings to rich, complex reds that could age for decades. But they understood that the purpose of wine was to lubricate conversation and create a sense of shared pleasure, not to provide an escape from reality. The conversation that flows during a Roman dinner party is as carefully crafted as the menu itself. Topics are chosen to engage and educate rather than to inflame or divide. Guests might discuss the latest writings of popular authors, share news from distant parts of the empire, or debate philosophical questions that have engaged human minds for centuries. Romans valued wit and intelligence, but they also understood the importance of kindness and respect in social interaction. Children participate in these meals according to their age and development, gradually learning the social skills that will serve them throughout their lives. Younger children might listen more than they speak, absorbing the rhythms of adult conversation and learning how to conduct themselves in social situations. Older children are encouraged to contribute to discussions, with adults taking care to guide them toward topics that are appropriate and engaging. This approach to education creates young people who are comfortable in adult society and prepared to take their places as full citizens. The Roman dinner party often includes entertainment, but of a type that enhances rather than dominates the social atmosphere. A skilled musician might play the lyre or flute, providing a gentle musical background that supports conversation rather than overwhelming it. Sometimes a poet or storyteller shares works that educate and inspire, connecting the diners to the rich cultural heritage that Romans valued so highly. These performances are intimate and personal, creating shared experiences that bond the community together. As the formal meal concludes, the evening moves into its most relaxed phase, when guests settle back on their couches to enjoy the secundi mensae, or second tables. This course consists of fruits, nuts, and sweet treats that provide a gentle conclusion to the feast. Fresh grapes, figs, and dates offer the natural sweetness of sun-ripened fruit. Nuts cracked fresh from their shells provide satisfying textures and rich flavors. Honey cakes and other delicate sweets demonstrate the skill of Roman pastry cooks and provide indulgent but not overwhelming conclusions to the meal. During this final phase of the dinner, conversation often turns to more personal and philosophical topics. This is when Romans share their thoughts about the meaning of life, the nature of happiness, and the responsibilities that come with being part of a civilized society. These discussions are not academic debates, but personal reflections that help participants understand themselves and their place in the world. The Romans believed that such conversations were essential for the development of wisdom and character. The evening meal concludes not with abrupt departure, but with a gradual transition toward rest and reflection. Guests might move to the garden, where the evening air provides cooling relief and the sight of stars reminds everyone of their connection to the larger cosmos. The sounds of the city have quieted to a gentle murmur, and the household settles into the peaceful rhythms that will carry it through the night. Oil lamps continue to burn softly throughout the house, providing just enough light for safety while creating an atmosphere of warmth and security. The Romans understood that the transition from day to night should be gradual and gentle, allowing both body and mind to prepare for the restoration that comes with sleep. The evening hours are not rushed toward their conclusion, but savored as a precious time when the demands of the external world give way to the inner life of the community. As household members and guests prepare for sleep, they carry with them the satisfaction that comes from time well spent in the company of others. The evening meal has nourished not only their bodies, but also their spirits, reinforcing the bonds of affection and respect that make civilized life possible. This daily ritual of shared food and conversation is one of the foundations upon which Roman society built its remarkable achievements. As the last traces of sunset fade from the Roman sky, we enter the most profound and peaceful period of the ancient day. This is the time when the bustling energy of urban life gives way to quieter pursuits that nourish the soul and prepare the mind for the restoration that comes with sleep. In this golden age of Roman civilization, the evening hours were not filled with artificial light and endless activity, but with gentle transitions that honored the natural rhythms of human existence. The Roman house at this hour takes on an almost sacred quality, transformed by the soft glow of oil lamps that create pools of warm light connected by comfortable shadows. These lamps, burning olive oil with small wicks of twisted fiber, provide illumination that is gentle on the eyes and conducive to the quiet activities that mark the end of the day. The flickering flames create an atmosphere of peace and intimacy that draws people together and encourages reflection on the day's experiences. In the main living areas of the house, family members gather for the quiet pleasures that Romans valued most highly. This might be the time when someone reads aloud from a favorite author, sharing passages that inspire, educate, or simply entertain. The Romans were passionate readers who understood that literature was not merely a form of escape, but a way of connecting with the accumulated wisdom of human civilization. A reading might include selections from Homer's great epics, which taught lessons about courage and loyalty, or from more recent authors who explored questions of ethics and philosophy. The act of reading aloud was itself a cultivated art that required skill and practice. The reader must not only pronounce the words correctly, but also understand their meaning deeply enough to convey their emotional content to the listeners. This practice made literature a communal experience that brought families and friends together around shared stories and ideas. Children learned to appreciate good writing by hearing it performed with skill and passion, while adults found in these readings both entertainment and opportunities for meaningful discussion. When reading concludes, conversation often continues in the gentle, meandering way that characterizes the best evening discussions. Topics flow naturally from one to another, guided not by any formal agenda but by the interests and concerns of the participants. Someone might share news received in a letter from relatives in a distant province, providing glimpses of how people live in other parts of the vast empire. Others might discuss philosophical questions that have no easy answers but reward careful thought and consideration. The Romans valued conversation as one of the highest forms of human activity, and they cultivated the skills necessary to make it both enjoyable and educational. Good conversation required not only intelligence and knowledge, but also empathy and the ability to listen carefully to others. Romans learned to ask questions that drew out the thoughts and experiences of their companions, to share their own ideas in ways that invited rather than dominated discussion, and to disagree respectfully when differences of opinion arose. These evening conversations often touch on themes that are timeless in their appeal and relevance. Family members might discuss the events of their day, sharing experiences and seeking advice from those who love them. Friends explore questions about the nature of happiness, the responsibilities of citizenship, or the meaning of a life well lived. These discussions are not abstract intellectual exercises, but personal explorations that help participants understand themselves and their place in the world more clearly. The physical environment of the Roman evening supports these quiet activities with remarkable effectiveness. The thick walls of the house muffle the sounds of the street, creating a sense of peaceful isolation that allows for focused attention on interior life. The courtyards and gardens provide gentle sounds of flowing water and rustling leaves that soothe the mind and mask any remaining urban noise. The temperature of the rooms, moderated by the thermal mass of stone and brick construction, remains comfortable without any need for artificial heating or cooling. As the evening progresses, some family members might turn to personal activities that provide individual satisfaction and relaxation. This could be the time when someone works on a piece of embroidery, creating beautiful patterns with colored threads that will eventually decorate clothing or household linens. The repetitive motions of needlework have a meditative quality that calms the mind while producing something useful and beautiful. Each stitch requires attention and care, creating a form of moving meditation that connects the worker to a long tradition of domestic craftsmanship. Others might spend time writing letters to friends and relatives in distant parts of the empire, maintaining the networks of personal relationships that were so important in Roman society. Letter writing was considered both an art and a social responsibility, requiring not only good penmanship but also the ability to express thoughts and feelings in ways that would interest and please the recipient. Romans took great care with their correspondence, understanding that a well-written letter was a gift that could provide pleasure and comfort to someone far from home. The materials used for writing reflect the Roman appreciation for quality and beauty in everyday objects. Papyrus scrolls, made from reeds grown in the marshes of Egypt, provide smooth surfaces that take ink cleanly and hold writing for centuries. Reed pens, carefully cut and shaped, allow for both fine detail work and broader strokes that give character and personality to the written word. Ink made from soot and gum creates deep black marks that stand out clearly against the light-colored papyrus. Music often plays a gentle role in these evening hours, but always in ways that support rather than dominate the peaceful atmosphere. Someone might play the lyre, an instrument whose soft tones blend beautifully with conversation and create a subtle musical background that enhances the mood without demanding attention. The Romans appreciated music as one of the arts that could elevate the human spirit, but they understood that it should serve the needs of the moment rather than becoming an end in itself. The Roman approach to music in domestic settings emphasized simplicity and elegance rather than technical virtuosity or emotional drama. Evening music was meant to soothe and uplift, providing a gentle soundtrack for family life that enhanced the sense of peace and contentment that marked the end of a successful day. Musicians within the family often learned to play well enough to provide this background music, understanding that their role was to contribute to the overall harmony of the household rather than to showcase their individual talents. Children participate in these evening activities according to their ages and abilities, gradually learning the social and cultural skills that will serve them throughout their lives. Younger children might simply listen to the conversations and music, absorbing the rhythms of adult interaction and beginning to understand what it means to be part of a civilized community. Older children are encouraged to contribute their own thoughts and observations, with adults taking care to guide them toward topics and activities that are both appropriate and engaging. The Roman understanding of childhood emphasized gradual development and patient guidance rather than rigid control or premature independence. Children were seen as full human beings whose potential needed to be carefully nurtured, not as miniature adults who could be expected to behave like their elders. This approach created young people who were comfortable with both authority and responsibility, prepared to take their places as contributing members of society when they reached maturity. As the evening deepens, the pace of activity naturally slows, creating a gentle transition toward the complete rest that will come with sleep. Conversations become more reflective and personal, music grows softer and more contemplative, and individual activities turn toward preparation for the night ahead. This transition is not rushed or artificial, but follows the natural rhythms that have governed human life since the beginning of time. Now we descend into the profound quietude that marks the heart of a Roman evening, when the household settles into that perfect stillness that prepares both body and soul for the restoration of sleep. This is the hour when all the activities of the day resolve into a gentle peace that seems to emanate from the very stones of the house itself. The Romans understood, perhaps better than any civilization before or since, that the transition into night should be treated as a sacred time, worthy of the same care and attention that they brought to their greatest architectural achievements. In this deep evening hour, the Roman house becomes a sanctuary of tranquility that shields its inhabitants from all the concerns and anxieties of the external world. The thick walls, built to last for centuries, create a sense of permanence and security that allows the mind to release the tensions of the day and turn inward toward reflection and renewal. The soft light of the oil lamps creates an atmosphere that is both intimate and dignified, reminding everyone present that they are part of a civilization that values beauty and grace in even the most ordinary moments. The conversations that continue during this hour take on a different quality from those that marked the earlier evening. Topics become more personal and philosophical, as family members and close friends share thoughts and experiences that reveal their deeper selves. These discussions often center on questions that have no easy answers but reward careful consideration. What does it mean to live a good life? How can we find happiness and contentment in an uncertain world? What responsibilities do we have to our families, our communities, and future generations? Romans approached these profound questions not as abstract intellectual puzzles, but as practical matters that affected how they chose to live each day. Their philosophical discussions were grounded in real experience and aimed toward developing wisdom that could guide them through the challenges and opportunities that life presented. This practical approach to philosophy made it accessible to ordinary people rather than restricting it to professional scholars, creating a culture where deep thinking was valued and practiced throughout society. The physical comfort of the Roman evening environment supports this philosophical reflection with remarkable effectiveness. The temperature of the rooms, naturally moderated by the thermal mass of stone and brick construction, remains perfect for human comfort without any need for artificial climate control. The sounds of flowing water from fountains and the gentle rustle of leaves in the garden create a natural symphony that masks urban noise while providing the kind of subtle sensory input that promotes relaxation and clear thinking. The Romans understood that the human mind functions best when the body is comfortable and the environment is conducive to concentration. Their houses were designed to provide this optimal environment naturally, using principles of architecture and engineering that worked with rather than against the natural world. The result was domestic spaces that supported the full range of human activities, from the most energetic work of the day to the deepest contemplation of the evening hours. During this time, some household members might turn to activities that engage the hands while freeing the mind for reflection. This could be the time when someone works on a piece of weaving, using techniques passed down through generations to create cloth that is both beautiful and functional. The repetitive motions of the loom have a meditative quality that calms the nerves while producing something useful for the household. Each thread must be placed with care and attention, creating a form of moving meditation that connects the weaver to the long tradition of domestic craftsmanship. Others might spend these quiet hours working with clay, shaping simple vessels for household use or creating decorative objects that will bring beauty to daily life. The Romans were skilled potters who understood that even the most utilitarian objects could be made beautiful with care and attention to detail. Working with clay connects the craftsperson to one of humanity's oldest arts, providing a sense of continuity with countless generations who have found satisfaction and meaning in creating useful and beautiful objects with their own hands. The Roman approach to domestic craftsmanship emphasized quality and durability rather than speed or quantity. Objects were made to last for generations, with each piece receiving the time and attention necessary to ensure that it would serve its intended purpose well. This approach created households filled with beautiful, functional objects that connected their users to the skilled artisans who made them and to the natural materials from which they were crafted. Reading continues to play an important role during these deep evening hours, but the choice of material often shifts toward works that promote reflection and spiritual development. This might be the time to explore the writings of the Stoic philosophers, whose teachings about acceptance, duty, and inner peace provided guidance for countless Romans seeking to live wisely and well. The Stoics taught that happiness comes not from external circumstances, which are largely beyond our control, but from the development of character and the practice of virtue in daily life. Other popular evening reading might include the pastoral poetry of Virgil, whose beautiful descriptions of rural life provided city dwellers with connections to the natural world and reminders of the simple pleasures that are available to those who know how to appreciate them. Virgil's poetry celebrated the dignity of agricultural work, the beauty of the changing seasons, and the deep satisfaction that comes from living in harmony with the natural rhythms of the earth. The act of reading during these evening hours often becomes a form of meditation, with the reader moving slowly through familiar passages and pausing to reflect on their meaning and application to personal experience. Romans understood that great literature reveals new layers of meaning with each reading, and they returned again and again to favorite works, finding in them guidance, comfort, and inspiration. This approach to reading made books not just sources of information or entertainment, but companions for life's journey. Musical activity during this deep evening hour becomes even more subtle and contemplative than earlier in the evening. Someone might play very softly on a simple flute, creating melodies that seem to emerge from and blend back into the silence. These melodies are not performances in any formal sense, but personal expressions that contribute to the overall atmosphere of peace and reflection. The music serves the same function as the sound of flowing water or rustling leaves, providing gentle sensory input that supports rather than distracts from inner contemplation. The Romans appreciated music as one of the arts that could directly touch the human soul, bypassing the rational mind to create states of feeling that words alone could not achieve. But they understood that this power should be used carefully and appropriately, with different types of music suited to different times and purposes. Evening music was meant to calm and inspire, creating an atmosphere conducive to the inner work of examining one's life and preparing for the restoration that comes with sleep. Prayer and spiritual reflection often mark this deepest part of the Roman evening, though these practices take forms that are quite different from what later religious traditions would develop. Roman spirituality was practical and personal, focused on gratitude for the blessings of life and requests for guidance in facing its challenges. Romans might thank the household gods for the day's successes and safety, ask for protection during the vulnerable hours of sleep, or simply acknowledge their place in the larger order of the universe. This spiritual dimension of Roman evening life was integrated seamlessly with the practical and social activities that marked the end of the day. Romans did not separate their religious feelings from their daily experiences, but saw the divine as present in all aspects of life, from the most mundane household tasks to the most elevated philosophical discussions. This integration created a sense of wholeness and meaning that supported psychological health and emotional resilience. As this deep evening hour draws toward its close, the household gradually prepares for the complete rest that will come with sleep. Oil lamps are extinguished one by one, leaving only enough light for safety while creating an atmosphere that signals the approaching end of conscious activity. Family members and guests begin to withdraw to their private quarters, carrying with them the peace and satisfaction that come from time well spent in contemplation and community. We now approach the most sacred and mysterious time in the Roman daily cycle, when the household stands at the threshold between the conscious activities of the day and the restorative mysteries of sleep. This transition period was treated by the Romans not as an abrupt end to productive activity, but as a gradual and reverent passage into a different state of being. They understood that the quality of one's sleep depended largely on the quality of preparation that preceded it, and they had developed rituals and practices that ensured this transition was both peaceful and complete. The Roman approach to preparing for sleep reflected their broader understanding of human nature as fundamentally connected to natural rhythms and cycles. Just as they planned their days around the movement of the sun and organized their years around the changing seasons, Romans understood that the transition from wakefulness to sleep should follow natural patterns that honored both the body's needs and the soul's deeper requirements for peace and restoration. During this threshold time, the atmosphere of the Roman house takes on an almost sacred quality that seems to emanate from every corner and surface. The remaining oil lamps burn with steady flames that create pools of warm, golden light connected by comfortable darkness. These lights are positioned strategically to provide illumination for necessary activities while avoiding the harsh brightness that would interfere with the body's natural preparation for sleep. The Romans understood that light affects not only our ability to see, but also our psychological state and our body's internal rhythms. The sounds that fill the house during this transition period are chosen and modulated with the same care that Romans brought to all aspects of domestic life. The fountains in the courtyards continue their gentle murmur, providing the kind of consistent, soothing sound that masks other noises while creating an atmosphere of tranquility. The last conversations of the evening are conducted in voices that are naturally quieter and more reflective than those used during the busy hours of the day. Household members begin the personal rituals that prepare both body and mind for the restoration that comes with sleep. These rituals are not elaborate or time-consuming, but they are performed with care and attention that acknowledges the importance of this daily transition. The Romans understood that the few minutes spent in deliberate preparation for sleep could dramatically affect the quality of rest that followed, and they were willing to invest this time in practices that supported their overall health and well-being. The process of preparing for sleep begins with the body, which must be made clean and comfortable after the activities of the day. Romans wash their hands and faces with warm water that has been gently heated and scented with herbs that promote relaxation. Lavender, chamomile, and other aromatic plants known for their calming properties are infused in the washing water, creating a sensory experience that signals to both body and mind that the time for active engagement with the world is ending. The Romans were sophisticated in their understanding of how different scents affect human psychology and physiology. They knew that certain fragrances could promote alertness and energy, while others encouraged relaxation and peace. The herbs used in evening preparations were chosen specifically for their ability to calm the nervous system and prepare the mind for the receptive state that allows for deep, restorative sleep. Clothing plays an important role in this transition ritual, with Romans changing from the garments worn during the day into special sleeping clothes that are designed for comfort rather than appearance. These night clothes are made from the softest fabrics available, often linen that has been washed many times until it achieves a texture that is gentle against the skin. The Romans understood that physical comfort was essential for psychological relaxation, and they were willing to invest in quality bedding and sleepwear that supported good rest. The bedroom itself becomes a sanctuary during these preparation rituals, transformed from a simple sleeping space into an environment that actively promotes rest and restoration. Windows are adjusted to provide appropriate ventilation while maintaining privacy and security. Bed coverings are arranged to provide warmth without weight, using wool blankets that have been carded and woven to achieve the perfect balance of insulation and breathability. The Romans paid careful attention to the positioning and arrangement of furniture in their bedrooms, understanding that the physical environment affects both the ease of falling asleep and the quality of rest that follows. Beds are positioned to take advantage of natural air currents while avoiding drafts. Storage areas are organized so that necessary items are easily accessible without creating clutter that might disturb the peaceful atmosphere of the room. During this preparation time, many Romans engage in brief periods of personal reflection that help them process the experiences of the day and prepare psychologically for sleep. This might involve reviewing the day's events, acknowledging both successes and failures, and setting intentions for the following day. Romans understood that unresolved concerns and anxieties could interfere with sleep, and they developed simple practices for addressing these issues before attempting to rest. This personal reflection often takes the form of gratitude practices that help shift attention away from problems and concerns toward appreciation for the positive aspects of life. Romans might mentally review the day's pleasures and satisfactions, from the simple enjoyment of a good meal to the deeper satisfaction of work well done or relationships strengthened. This practice of gratitude was understood to promote both psychological well-being and spiritual development. Prayer plays a natural role in these evening preparations, though Roman prayer was typically simple and personal rather than elaborate or formal. Romans might thank their household gods for protection during the day, ask for peaceful sleep and pleasant dreams, or simply acknowledge their place in the larger order of the universe. These prayers were not performed out of fear or obligation, but from a genuine sense of connection to forces greater than themselves. The Roman understanding of prayer emphasized gratitude and acceptance rather than petition and complaint. Romans were taught to appreciate what they had rather than constantly striving for what they lacked, to accept what they could not change while working to improve what was within their control. This approach to spirituality promoted psychological health and emotional resilience while providing a sense of meaning and purpose that supported overall well-being. Family relationships receive special attention during these evening preparations, with parents and children sharing moments of affection and connection that strengthen the bonds that hold the household together. This might involve parents blessing their children, couples sharing private words of love and appreciation, or family members expressing gratitude for each other's contributions to the household success and happiness. The Romans understood that family relationships required constant attention and nurturing to remain strong and healthy. The evening preparations provided natural opportunities for family members to reconnect after the day's separate activities and to reinforce the love and loyalty that made family life a source of strength and support. These moments of connection were understood to be as important as any practical preparation for sleep. As these preparation rituals near completion, the household settles into the final stages of transition toward sleep. Oil lamps are extinguished in sequence, with each area of the house gradually returning to darkness. The process is unhurried and deliberate, allowing time for eyes to adjust and minds to accept the approaching end of conscious activity. The last lamp to be extinguished is usually in the master bedroom, symbolically marking the end of the household's active day. The final moments before sleep are treated as particularly sacred time, when the boundary between waking consciousness and the mysterious realm of dreams becomes thin and permeable. Romans understood that this threshold moment required special reverence and care, as it represented a daily practice of surrender and trust that had profound implications for both psychological and spiritual development. As we move into the penultimate phase of our Roman evening, we enter the profound quietude that immediately precedes sleep, when all the preparations of body and mind converge into a state of perfect readiness for the restoration that comes with deep rest. This is perhaps the most intimate and sacred time in the Roman daily cycle, when the individual's soul prepares to surrender conscious control and trust in the natural processes that will renew both body and spirit during the hours of darkness. The Roman bedroom at this hour becomes a perfect sanctuary of peace, designed with centuries of accumulated wisdom about what the human being requires for truly restorative sleep. The thick stone walls have spent the day absorbing and moderating the heat of the Mediterranean sun, and now they release this stored warmth slowly and gently, creating an environment that remains comfortable throughout the night without any need for artificial heating. The natural thermal mass of Roman construction creates sleeping conditions that are stable and soothing, free from the temperature fluctuations that can disturb rest. The bed itself represents the culmination of Roman understanding about the requirements for healthy sleep. The frame is built from hardwoods that have been seasoned for years to prevent warping and cracking, creating a foundation that is both solid and silent. The mattress is stuffed with wool that has been carded to remove all impurities and then arranged to provide support where it is needed while remaining soft enough to conform to the body's natural contours. Roman beds were designed to last for generations while providing consistent comfort night after night. The bedding reflects the Roman appreciation for natural materials that breathe with the body and promote healthy rest. Sheets woven from flax grown in the fertile fields of Egypt provide a surface that is smooth against the skin while remaining cool and dry throughout the night. Blankets made from wool gathered from sheep that graze on mountain pastures provide warmth that adjusts naturally to the body's changing needs during different phases of sleep. These natural materials create a sleeping environment that supports the body's own regulatory systems rather than interfering with them. The positioning of the bed within the room follows principles that the Romans developed through careful observation of what promotes the best rest. The bed is placed to take advantage of natural air currents that provide ventilation without creating drafts. Windows are positioned and sized to allow for appropriate levels of fresh air while maintaining the privacy and security that are essential for peaceful sleep. The Romans understood that good sleep requires not only physical comfort, but also psychological security and peace of mind. As the final preparations for sleep are completed, the Roman approaches this daily transition with a sense of reverence and gratitude that transforms what could be a merely biological necessity into a spiritual practice. The act of lying down to sleep becomes a conscious surrender to the natural rhythms that govern all life, an acknowledgement that human beings are part of a larger order that includes cycles of activity and rest, consciousness and unconsciousness, effort and restoration. The Romans understood that the quality of one's sleep was directly connected to the state of mind with which one approached this daily transition. They developed practices designed to clear the consciousness of the day's concerns and anxieties, allowing the mind to settle into the receptive state that permits deep, restorative rest. These practices were simple but effective, based on centuries of accumulated wisdom about human psychology and the requirements for healthy sleep. The process of settling into bed becomes a deliberate ritual that engages all the senses in preparation for rest. The Romans pay attention to the feel of the soft bedding against their skin, appreciating the comfort that comes from materials that have been chosen and prepared with care. They notice the gentle air movement that provides freshness without chill, the subtle sounds of water and wind that mask any disturbances while providing the kind of consistent, soothing input that promotes relaxation. The visual environment of the Roman bedroom supports this transition into sleep with carefully considered details that promote peace and tranquility. Any remaining light comes from a single small oil lamp that burns with a steady, gentle flame, providing just enough illumination for safety while creating an atmosphere that signals the approaching end of conscious activity. The walls may be decorated with simple frescoes that depict peaceful scenes from nature, providing images that support relaxation rather than stimulation. Romans often spend the final moments before sleep in quiet reflection that helps them process the day's experiences and prepare psychologically for rest. This reflection typically focuses on gratitude for the day's blessings and satisfactions rather than worry about its problems and challenges. By deliberately directing attention toward positive experiences and feelings of appreciation, Romans create mental states that are conducive to peaceful sleep and pleasant dreams. This practice of evening gratitude serves multiple purposes in Roman daily life. It helps individuals maintain perspective on their lives, recognizing that even difficult days typically contain moments of beauty, satisfaction, or connection that deserve acknowledgement and appreciation. It also creates positive emotional states that support both psychological well-being and physical health, as the Romans understood that mental and emotional states directly affect the body's ability to rest and restore itself. The transition from waking consciousness to sleep becomes a gradual and natural process that is supported by all the elements of the Roman evening routine. The body has been prepared through appropriate food, gentle activity, and comfortable physical conditions. The mind has been calmed through meaningful conversation, reflective reading, and spiritual practices that promote peace and acceptance. The environment has been arranged to provide all the conditions necessary for deep, restorative rest. As consciousness begins to fade, Romans often experience the pleasant drowsiness that comes when all the conditions for good sleep have been properly established. This drowsiness is not the heavy, unpleasant tiredness that results from exhaustion or poor health, but the gentle, natural sleepiness that indicates the body's readiness for the restorative processes that occur during deep rest. The Romans understood the difference between these different types of tiredness and organized their lives to promote the kind of healthy fatigue that leads to truly refreshing sleep. The final moments of waking consciousness are often marked by a sense of peaceful surrender that reflects the Roman understanding of sleep as a natural and beneficial process rather than a loss of control to be feared. Romans approached sleep with confidence and trust, knowing that they had done everything possible to ensure that their rest would be deep, peaceful, and restorative. This positive attitude toward sleep helped create the psychological conditions that actually promote better rest. The Roman practice of evening prayer often concludes with expressions of trust and surrender that help ease the transition from conscious control to the unconscious processes of sleep. These prayers acknowledge the limits of human effort and control while expressing gratitude for the natural systems that continue to sustain life even during periods of unconsciousness. Romans understood that sleep required a kind of faith, a willingness to let go of conscious effort and trust in processes that operate beyond the reach of the rational mind. As the boundaries between waking and sleeping consciousness begin to blur, Romans often experience the pleasant floating sensation that marks the onset of deep rest. This experience is enhanced by all the careful preparations that have preceded it, from the comfortable physical environment to the peaceful mental state that has been cultivated throughout the evening. The transition becomes as smooth and natural as the setting of the sun or the turning of the seasons. The last conscious thought of many Romans is often one of gratitude and contentment, a recognition that the day has been well lived and that the approaching rest will prepare them for whatever challenges and opportunities the following day might bring. This positive conclusion to the waking day creates the best possible foundation for the restorative processes that will occur during the hours of sleep, ensuring that tomorrow will begin with energy, optimism, and readiness for whatever life might offer. We have arrived at the most profound and mysterious moment of the Roman evening, when consciousness finally releases its gentle hold on the day and surrenders completely to the ancient rhythms of sleep. This is the sacred threshold that human beings have crossed each night since the beginning of time, the daily practice of trust and surrender that connects us to the deepest mysteries of existence. In the Roman understanding, this moment was not simply the end of waking activity, but a passage into a different realm of being where restoration, healing, and renewal could occur according to natural laws that operated beyond the reach of conscious effort. The Roman who has prepared carefully for this moment finds that sleep comes not as a struggle or a loss, but as a natural completion of the day's activities, as inevitable and peaceful as the setting of the sun or the closing of a flower at dusk. All the elements of the evening routine have converged to create the perfect conditions for deep, restorative rest. The body has been nourished with good food and prepared with appropriate hygiene, the mind has been calmed through meaningful activity and spiritual reflection, and the environment has been arranged to provide all the physical conditions necessary for healthy sleep. As the final traces of waking consciousness begin to fade, the Roman experiences the gentle floating sensation that marks the onset of deep rest. This is not the heavy, unconscious collapse that results from exhaustion, but the graceful transition that occurs when all the systems of body and mind are properly prepared for sleep. The breathing naturally deepens and slows, the muscles release their tension in a gradual wave that spreads from the core of the body outward to the limbs, and the mind settles into the quiet receptivity that allows for true restoration. The physical environment of the Roman bedroom continues to provide perfect support for this transition into sleep. The thermal mass of the stone walls maintains a comfortable temperature that remains stable throughout the night, while the natural materials of the bedding breathe with the body and adjust to its changing needs. The gentle sounds of water flowing in the courtyard fountain and leaves rustling in the garden create a subtle acoustic environment that masks any disturbances while providing the kind of consistent, soothing input that the brain processes as signals of safety and peace. The Romans understood that sleep was not simply the absence of waking activity, but a different state of being with its own purposes and processes. They recognized that during sleep, the body performed essential maintenance and repair functions that could not occur during waking hours, when energy was directed toward meeting the demands of conscious life. They also understood that sleep provided opportunities for the mind to process and integrate the experiences of the day, creating memories and insights that would serve them in the future. This understanding led Romans to treat sleep with the reverence and care that such an important process deserved. They were willing to invest time and attention in creating the conditions that would promote the deepest and most restorative rest possible, understanding that the quality of their sleep directly affected their health, their mood, their ability to think clearly, and their capacity to enjoy life fully. Sleep was not seen as time stolen from productive activity, but as an essential foundation that made all other activities possible. As consciousness fades and the Roman settles into the deepest phases of sleep, the body begins the complex processes of restoration and renewal that will prepare it for another day of activity. Heart rate and breathing slow to their most efficient rhythms, allowing the cardiovascular system to rest and repair itself. Muscles relax completely, releasing the tension accumulated during the day's activities and allowing for the cellular repair processes that maintain strength and flexibility. The brain during deep sleep becomes a marvel of efficiency and restoration that the Romans could not have understood in detail but whose benefits they clearly recognized. During these deep phases of rest, the brain clears away the metabolic waste products that accumulate during waking hours, essentially cleaning itself for optimal function. Memory consolidation processes sort through the day's experiences, strengthening connections that are important while allowing less significant information to fade away. Dreams, when they occur, often reflect the peaceful and positive mental state that the Roman has cultivated through the evening's activities. Rather than being filled with anxiety and conflict, dreams in this context tend to be restorative and pleasant, sometimes offering insights or creative solutions that emerge from the unconscious processing of the day's experiences. The Romans understood that the content of dreams was often influenced by the state of mind with which one approached sleep, and they structured their evening routines to promote positive dream experiences. The progression through the different stages of sleep follows natural patterns that have remained constant throughout human history. The Roman sleeper moves gracefully from the lighter stages of sleep, where consciousness gradually releases its hold on the external world, into the deeper phases where the most important restoration occurs. This natural cycle repeats several times throughout the night, each cycle providing different types of restoration and renewal. During the deepest phases of sleep, the Roman's body produces the hormones and other biochemical substances that are essential for growth, healing, and maintenance. The immune system strengthens itself, preparing to defend against illness and infection. Damaged tissues repair themselves, and new cells replace those that have been worn out by the day's activities. Energy stores are replenished, preparing the body for whatever challenges the following day might bring. The profound peace that characterizes truly restorative sleep reflects the harmony that the Romans sought to create between human life and natural rhythms. This is not the fitful, anxious rest that results from poor preparation or unsuitable conditions, but the deep, confident sleep that comes when all systems of body and mind are properly aligned with natural processes. The Roman sleeper rests with the confidence that comes from having done everything possible to create the conditions for renewal and restoration. Throughout the long hours of the Roman night, this restorative process continues according to ancient patterns that connect the sleeper to all life on earth. The same forces that cause plants to grow and animals to thrive operate in the human body during sleep, renewing and strengthening every system and preparing for another day of activity and consciousness. Sleep becomes a daily practice of trust in these natural processes, a surrender to forces that are larger and wiser than individual effort or control. As the night progresses toward its conclusion, the Roman sleeper gradually moves through the lighter stages of sleep that prepare for the return of consciousness. This transition is as natural and graceful as the original descent into sleep, marked by the gradual restoration of awareness and the gentle awakening of the body's systems. The approach of dawn triggers subtle changes in hormone levels and brain activity that begin the process of returning to waking consciousness. The quality of this awakening reflects the quality of the sleep that has preceded it. The Roman who has prepared carefully for rest and slept deeply through the night awakens naturally, without the jarring disruption of artificial alarms or the grogginess that results from poor sleep. Instead, consciousness returns gradually and pleasantly, accompanied by the sense of renewal and restoration that indicates that sleep has accomplished its essential purposes. The first moments of waking consciousness often bring with them a sense of gratitude and wonder at the mysterious process that has just been completed. The Roman awakens refreshed in body, clear in mind, and ready to meet the opportunities and challenges of a new day. The investment of time and attention in proper preparation for sleep has yielded returns that will be evident in every activity and interaction of the coming day. As the eternal city awakens around them, the Roman carries forward into the new day all the benefits of deep, restorative sleep. Energy levels are optimal, mood is positive, thinking is clear, and the body is prepared for whatever activities the day might require. This daily practice of proper rest becomes one of the foundations upon which a life of health, productivity, and satisfaction can be built, demonstrating the Roman wisdom that understood the profound importance of honoring natural rhythms and preparing carefully for the essential processes that sustain human life. The cycle is complete, ready to begin again with the rising sun, as it has for countless generations and will for countless more. In sleep, we join the eternal rhythm that connects all life, finding in this daily practice of surrender and restoration a source of strength, wisdom, and peace that enables us to live fully and well in the waking world. The Roman understanding of sleep as a sacred process worthy of reverence and careful preparation offers timeless wisdom for all who seek the deep rest that makes truly vibrant life possible.